and I can seize my own silhouette. I'm getting stronger, step by step. The clock is ticking, but there's no time for regrets. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Feel like a dynamite, ready to explode right up in the sky. I need you to listen, I need you to hear, and don't show any fear. I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes tonight. Yeah. We are heroes tonight. We will fly above the sky. We are heroes I've been flying from town to town, from London to Taiwan. I've been all around the globe trying to protect your soul.
Good evening and welcome to Voices Carry on the Voices Carry Radio Network. This is your host, Terry Todd, along with my beautiful, lovely, and talented co-host, Miss Mary Quirion. Are you with us, hon?
Yes, I am.
How are you doing?
I am great. How are you?
I am better. That's the only way I know to describe it. I've had kind of a rough week, but I am much better today and yesterday and so on. So I just cannot believe that everybody is sick. It seems like everywhere you go now, people are sick or not feeling good. It's kind of weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, Ethan went back to base and got really sick and was throwing up and had migraines and ended up in the ER. I'm like, what in the world?
Well, I know. I saw that. That's pitiful. We've been keeping him in prayer. So,
Well, thanks. He's all better now. Out in the
good.
field.
Well, we pray for him every day anyway. But just when he was sick, we were really hanging in there for him, and that.
I appreciate that.
Sure thing. Our kids are very important to us, just like I know yours are to you. So, and
absolutely.
How far are we doing the baby countdown? How far are we away from the little one?
She's due September 8th, but she's measuring a week earlier, so I'm on standby.
All right. So it could be around the 1st of September.
Yeah, probably Labor Day. Wouldn't that be funny?
Oh, it would, yeah. Your daughter-in-law would go into labor on Labor Day.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, I shouldn't have said that. That was tacky, but
watch it happen now.
Absolutely. We've got we've got a little announcement that we were going to talk about tonight. Before we get to Chris, did you want to, since you're going to be the driving force in this little episode, would you like to tell folks about it and get started and just let them know what's coming?
Sure. We have decided that we're going to take Voices Carry on the road. I think it would be interesting. I think our first stop is going to be Brown Mountain, which the Legend of the Lights. It's pretty interesting. And I know there's a place in Texas too, Terry, you were telling me about.
Yeah, Marfa.
Yeah, which has the same kind of thing. So
yes,
we've decided that, we're going to hit the road with Chris and Emily and Marissa and that's part of the team, and just kind of broadcast live. So, we're hitting the highway. And the one I'm really, really excited about is October 1st, where we're going to go visit Jeff and Vicky at the Hills Bar Dam.
Yeah, I tell you that I am trying like everything to entice my doctor into letting me go on October 1st with you guys, because Jeff and Vicky are two of the kindest, sweetest, most God-loving people that I've ever met in my life. I would love to be able to meet them, and if the time is right and if the Lord's willing, I'll be able to go. We're just going to have to wait and see, but
we're praying for that.
Absolutely.
I know they think of you as family. They have nothing but wonderful things to say.
Well, I appreciate that very much. They are extremely kind people, and I love them both dearly. And I feel the same way. I feel like they're family as well, just like I do you. You're my family, and
you're my family. And I love Anna.
Oh, she's my sweetheart.
My girl.
Yeah. It's the weirdest thing, and I've mentioned this before probably more than once, but it's the weirdest thing to me because I grew up, primarily in the 70s and 80s. And back then, for you to have a friend, someone you were close to, it was someone that you knew, that you saw, every day or every other day or something. And the way the world has changed with all this social media and stuff, it's like I have people all over the world now that I really care about, that I love, that are like, that have that close feeling with. Mm-hmm. And back, like I said, in the 70s and 80s, you would have never, ever thought about anything like that. It just seemed like a faraway dream, and here it is. It's a reality for us now.
It is. And Jeff and Vicky are in the chat room.
Oh, great. I haven't made it over to the chat room yet, so I wasn't aware. That's great. I'm glad that they're there.
Yeah.
They are just really such sweet people. I'm not saying that just because they're here either. I see Dave there. Hi, Dave. Haven't talked to Dave for a while. Dave's another good fella. Dave is one of those guys that you wish you lived next door to, just so you could irritate the hell out of him sometimes. And
he could amuse you.
Oh, absolutely. That man's got a great sense of humor. We're just going to have. Oh, I see. He said hi. Hello, Dave. We've got a great show tonight. We're doing things. Things of a. It's interesting because we were talking with Chris before the show about how even 5-10 years ago, it was unheard of to encounter a paranormal group that was based in Christianity, based in God, and that sort of thing. And here, now they're popping up all over the place. I'm getting messages, from these different paranormal groups saying, we're a God-based, Christian-based paranormal group. And that's, I believe that's a very good thing, because I believe, and I've made no secret about this. I believe, I will, Dave. I will, I promise you. Dave said I could irritate him anytime I wanted. There's a, what was I talking about? It just, and now it's to the point where there's a lot of Christian-based paranormal groups, and I believe that is, there are other ways of handling things, but the way to get it done, the quickest and easiest, to me, has always been, using Christianity as your base. I have run into people that said, oh, well, these people are Indian, so you need to deal with it through Indian. And I've watched people do that. And I've watched people do it the other way. The same Indian type thing, handled from a Christian's perspective, it just gets done a lot quicker and a lot easier. I believe that there is something inherently, and in this case, it's okay to use this. I believe there's something inherently awesome about the name of Jesus Christ. I believe that name has the power, as the scriptures say, to make demons tremble. And Don't you think? Absolutely, yeah. And that's just basically what it comes down to. And I have been involved in all kinds of demonic situations and everything. And it always comes down to, when you pull out the big guns, which is, the Lord Jesus, that takes care of it.
It does.
The reason I caught myself real quick, and I don't know if a lot of people realize this or not, do you realize that the word awesome that we use now to describe strawberry ice cream and other things, that word awesome came into being only to describe God?
Really?
Yes. That was that was kind of a special word that came into being and used only when talking about the magnificence, the omnipresence, omniscience of God. And like I said, now we use it for strawberry ice cream or whatever, But I used to be into words really big, so I learned a lot about that. Like, the word lie is right in the middle of the word believe.
Mm-hmm.
The word sin is right in the middle of the word business.
Do evil backwards. It lives.
Yes. Isn't that something? But anyway, I've sit here and rattled on for about 10 minutes now, so I think it's time we probably got our good guest on tonight. Our guest is from Nightwatch Paranormal Deliverance. His name is Chris Milner. He's a personal friend of our sweet sister Mary here. And she is, are you, I know that you're involved with his group. Are you like an active member?
I don't know. Am I, Chris?
Yeah, she's pretty much co-leader.
Okay, all right. Well, let's go ahead and bring Chris on. Everybody, this is Chris Milner from Nightwatch Paranormal Deliverance. Welcome, Chris. We are so delighted and happy that you're with us this evening, partner.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's our pleasure for sure. Mary, since you know Chris and y'all work together, I'm going to let you take off to beginning here, and then I'll add in.
Oh, great, because I know everything about him already, right?
Well, yeah.
All right, Chris, how about you tell us how you got involved with this to begin with in your personal experience?
Up until about 2007, I was pretty much a skeptic, and I'd see things on TV, and the only thing back then was pretty much Ed and Lorraine or a psychic, and I didn't really believe in that. And I started seeing some ghost shows about a place in Kansas that was haunted, and I thought, well, I think people actually believe that they're experiencing things, but I don't believe in it myself. I've never seen or heard anything. So the show Ghost Hunters came along, and I found that fascinating because I had no idea that there were groups out there that worked as a team gathering evidence of things, and you could see that things were going on. So I was pretty much a fan of the paranormal and a fan of ghost hunters for a while. But then I kind of got the excitement wore off a little bit because I thought they keep coming to the same conclusions, and I just really can't totally agree with it. So as time went on, I started getting kind of sad about it because I thought, to me, I don't agree with that. And they're just giving people a hopeless story as far as my faith goes.
Right.
And about people being stuck on earth after death. Maybe they're trying to avoid going to God, or maybe circumstances had them stuck here. But my personal point of view, I think that's just some kind of modern myth that they've embraced. And it's been passed off as fact. And if you say you don't believe in earthbound spirits, you get kind of
beat up on?
Yeah, you kind of get beat up some by the paranormal community. They don't want to respect a different opinion if it's not the same old story that they. It's like a cookie cutter. It's the same old thing all the time.
Yeah. Well, if I could interject here for a second, It is my personal belief that none of us know everything.
Yeah, that's right.
If we did, we would be God.
Yeah.
And that is why that I have an open mind. I have my own personal beliefs, but I have an open mind. And if someone's going to now, unless it gets into some of that weird crap like, the witches or the voodoo or Ouija boards or something like that. But as long as there's a base in it that, is where it makes sense, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that at all. But otherwise, I listen. You never know what you may learn. So I do listen, and I try to keep an open ear for new things and stuff that's coming along because as I said, none of us know everything. And I believe that someday when we get to heaven, we will know everything, but for now we don't. So we have to be kind of open to different things. And, that's basically it. I know that some of the things, some of the, kind of the principles of it, you and I disagree on, but I'm not going to sit here and beat you up about it or tell you you're wrong and you're goofy and all that. It's just a matter of us listening, respecting each other, and we both have the same belief system in God, so we can work around anything else, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree, and respect is the key.
Absolutely, and that's the way I look at it. So, you're safe here; nobody's going to jump on you here or beat you up here at all. So,
no, we're not going to throw you under that bus, Chris.
When I started working with the Ghost Group, I kind of said, I know what I believe, but I'm going to just kind of go with a clean slate and go out and see what we get and try to see what these things are and just kind of make up my own mind about it. And eventually, the more we went out, to me, it was more evidence of a demonic. But other people just didn't want to go that far, as to say that.
Yeah. Well, I do believe that demonic spirits are out there. I do believe that they're roaming around. I do believe that they're trying to take advantage of people any way they can. I don't know that they're quite as prevalent as people like Zach Baggins would have us to believe. I don't believe that, under every rock and behind every doorway there's a demon. But I do know that they're there. I've told the story on Voices Carry before. The day I became a believer in demons is when something that I could not see picked me up and threw me through a wall into the next room. That was when I knew that there was something much greater and more powerful than anything I had ever encountered before, other than God, out there. And I knew that it was time to, that I learn about this and deal with it. So, and I know for a fact that those things are out there. And I do know that they're after us because the scriptures tell us numerous times how to be careful and watch out for them things. But I know they're coming after us. And, but Zach Baggins, behind every tree, he finds one. And I don't think that it's that prevalent yet. We might get there at some point, but I don't think so yet. But anyway, that's kind of what I think. So, but people are not here listening to me; they're here listening to you. So let's go ahead and let's get back what you were talking about. I'm sorry that I kind of went down a little tree hole there, but
that's okay.
So you've been doing this since what did you say, 2006 or 7, somewhere along in there?
Pretty much. I kind of started just kind of doing it by myself at first, and then I started having stuff happening at home for a year or two. And that's when I called a local group into my house. And then they kind of invited me to come to one of their meetings. And I stayed with them. I was with them off and on for about 4 or 5 years.
I would be amiss if I didn't ask you this, but do you think that the fact that you started having some things going on in your house had something to do with the fact that you were getting involved with it, or was it just a coincidence?
I think it was because I was getting involved in it. I got involved in it not just because of watching ghost hunters. I got involved because I started working at a haunted school. And we had something going on every night in there. It was different kinds of things. And I was curious. I wanted to see kind of like, what is this? Is it negative energy? Is it a spirit? Is it, what could it be? And I started reading books and studying on it and watching all these shows. And then I kind of decided I'd get away from that for a while, take a break, and I started really reading my Bible and studying it. And I'd get down and pray all the time, and I'd even sing at home. I put on some praise music and just sing to God. And
that's wonderful.
I started feeling good, and I felt the best I ever had in my life. But about that time, some shadows got started. I started waking up and seeing shadows, and then I felt grabbed by one, and that happened 2 or 3 times. Or I'd be sitting watching somebody preach on TV and feel grabbed on top of my head, and it felt just like a tingling, like fingers on top of my head. And finally one night I had to get up and go pray through the house, and it seemed like it left for a while, but after I moved, either something else was there or it followed me over. So finally it came to an end, I think, when it seemed like it wasn't really going to do anything else. I'd see a shadow every now and then. But then one night I woke up and felt like something was trying to possess me. Mm-hmm. And I just, I prayed, and it's like God told me, rebuke it. So I actually spoke and said, be gone in the name of Jesus Christ. And it's like a little shadow went flying across the room. And that seemed to be the end of that. But
wow.
To me, that was definitely a demonic spirit if it was trying to overtake somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought maybe I could make a difference and do like, I don't know, just kind of do like what I'd seen on TV and just try to help people. And I thought, well, maybe I can be like some kind of chaplain or something. And if somebody had questions about God or anything, maybe something like that, but that was maybe a bit of a stretch. But going back to feeling alone and with the way I believed about it in the paranormal, I found Keith Johnson from Ghost Hunters. He had an internet and TV show up in Rhode Island. Uh-huh. And I started watching it, and once in a while he would come out and say exactly what he believed, that like 95% of everything is demons. Mm-hmm. And I started really watching that. I thought, hey, somebody's spoken out about it. Mm-hmm. And I thought about writing a book about it, about what are ghosts, and just kind of go through and see what I thought it was proven out to me to be, or go by what the Bible says about it. And then on Keith Johnson's website, I found Mark Hunneman's book, Seeing Ghosts Through God's Eyes. And I thought, well, somebody beat me to it. But I thought, well, good. I'm glad somebody else is openly saying what they believe about it. Mm-hmm. And I read his book, and he brought all these Bible verses out and put it together, and it was great. And I found out there's another guy in North Carolina, David Scott, had a team, and they went around. It was a deliverance ministry. So he pretty much believed the same thing, that there was all demons. Mm-hmm. But since then, I thought, well, this is never going anywhere within the paranormal community because there's too much resistance to it, and people are being taught by TV and being taught by other groups that these are mostly earthbound spirits, and how do you overcome that if you believe different?
Mm-hmm.
But lately, I heard that group from Georgia on your show.
Yes,
and they go all over the Southeast, and it's pretty much a deliverance ministry, and I was encouraged by that. I thought, good, more people are coming out and speaking out for God and saying what they really believe and not being afraid to.
Absolutely. That the people you're speaking about is Fox Family Paranormal. Yeah, they're great folks. People. I've known them for several years. They are really, really a good group. And like we were talking about, they are solely godly based, Christian based ministry, and it's just they're amazing people, and I am sure that Destiny and Michael will be very happy to know they encouraged you in what you're doing, because that's wonderful. I love it. And as I said, I'm contacted by various groups all the time. I also run a page on Facebook, Terry Todd's Paranormal Group Ratings. And there's a lot of people that are contacting me that are telling me, that we're a Christian-based paranormal group and all that. So I believe it's growing. I believe people are starting to figure out that the way you're doing it is the way to do it. So that's great. I'm very proud of that.
Me too, or I wouldn't be involved.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I first met Mary, and I'm being deadly honest here, the last thing in the world I thought she would ever do is what she's doing now. So I know that God has moved in her life in some direction, because and I believe that she is one of the people that will make a difference for you and your team and stuff. And she's just, Mary is one of the most, she truly has a heart for God. She's one of the most, and I'm not just complimenting everybody tonight. I'm telling you what I truly feel. It's amazing that that Mary got back, because I think that she is desperately needed in this field, and I'm very proud that she's getting back in and is joining, with your team and stuff, and I know it would take a very special team to draw her in. So that tells me a lot about you and your group, Chris.
Thanks, Terry.
I'm thankful to have Mary in the group, because she just has a never quit attitude, and because what drives her is people need help. People
absolutely.
Need help. And
that's
they
absolutely
do.
Right.
I think they need an alternative to it seems like almost every group is the same, or they come up with the same theories. And back when I was growing up, in school, they kind of taught you that different was good. If you're marketing something, it's better to be different. But now everything wants to be the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're kind of putting ourselves out there by what we say about what we believe, but we believe it 100%, so it's no risk to us.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, Mary, tell us a little bit about what it's like working with Chris and Nightwatch Paranormal.
Well, Chris has a heart for God, and that's what draws me in. His heart's in the right place, his mind's in the right place, and his spirit's in the right place. Mm-hmm. And like you said, I would never get involved again if that wasn't the case, because God has to be at the center of it.
Absolutely.
After everything I went through, and if you would have told me that I would be getting back into this, I would have told you you're absolutely nuts. Yeah. But I think it's a calling. Nobody really wants to go out and, try to defeat demons or rebuke demons or deal with negative stuff. It's not something you choose if you're in your right mind. I think I think God chooses you for it. And I think God chose Chris for it. Mm-hmm. And the girls we're working with, when you hear of 20 and 21-year-olds with a heart for Jesus, mm-hmm. That really want to help people, I think that's amazing.
Oh, absolutely. Because most, we were talking last week about this millennial generation and people like that. They have no interest in helping anybody. It's all me, 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 me.
Right.
What are you going to do for me? What are you going to give me? How can you help me? And to find young people like that who do have a heart for God, it's amazing in this day and time.
Yeah, and that's, first and foremost, what I like about Chris. And he's very honest and
Mm-hmm.
he's very laid back.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he's very even keeled, unlike me. I'm Italian,
Yeah.
very lively. Chris is just like an even keel kind of thing. And I think he's a good anchor for the team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he'll be a good teacher for the girls too.
That's great. And those young people, I'm sure that in yours and Chris's hands, they're going to excel. So I'm very pleased with that.
Well,
Very
we
much
want to
so.
do it the right way,
Yes, for sure.
So that's
Okay.
basically it in a nutshell.
Yeah. So, Chris, what are some of the things that you have encountered as far as you were talking about the experiences you had after you got into this a little bit? What are some of the experiences that you had? Would you mind sharing with us?
Like just little things that happened at work, or that was pretty much what happened at home, was the shadows and things. And
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What about the school? I
and
mean,
yeah,
that's
that
kind of
was
like what started it. So what was going on there?
that's an interesting place. I think it's probably been active for years and years.
Was it
That's
still
what,
was it still an active school,
yeah,
like kids coming in and stuff? Okay.
yeah. It got more active when school started back. During the summer, it was pretty quiet. But
Mm-hmm. All that energy those kids had.
yeah, it's where I went to middle school. So I thought, this is cool, working at my old school. And I'd go down. Well, it wasn't even dark. Like my first day there, I opened the classroom, empty classroom, and as soon as I got the door open, I heard ha 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 ha. And the TV had come on full blast.
Oh my
And it was
gosh.
on some old comedy western, and a guy was laughing, and I thought, man, that scared me to death. And then I had the TV do that to me at home when I was kind of fighting the shadows in there. I got up and I thought, I'm going to sit here and turn the TV on just to kind of get my mind back straight. And I turned the TV on at like 4 o'clock in the morning
Uh-huh.
in the middle of August, and it was about Salem witches. And I turned it on and it said,
Oh gosh.
I thought, whatever this is, it's laughing at me.
Yeah.
But other things happened in the school that happened to other people on both ends of the property was like, it sounded like doors opening and closing, but it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And it would sound like there was a special needs class, and it sounded, sometimes the toys would move around. And I left a recorder in there one weekend on a Friday night and went back and got it. And they had a washer dryer in there, and you could hear the dryer running.
Oh wow.
Off and on all night. And on the other end of the property, in the old gym that they still used, quite frequently, like 5:30 in the morning, the guy opening and turning the lights on, he would see a shadow of a man in a hat and a trench coat. And he'd go across the floor and go through the wall.
Wow.
And sometimes in another building, when it was real quiet in there, it sounded like footsteps following you down the hall, and all different kinds of things. I thought somebody was in the locker room with me one night, but nobody was there. It sounded like things sliding down the wall and falling on the desk and sliding off, and there was nothing slid off and nobody was there.
Yeah. Wow. Well, the you were mentioning a while ago that it got more active when the kids are there. Those things have to have some sort of energy to feed off of, and those kids are so full of energy that that's why it became more active when school was in. But sounds very interesting. Like you had an interesting situation going on there. So, please go ahead.
One other thing, that was one of the last things that happened while I worked there. I happened to change buildings, and the new custodian, they came in, and he was working on my old hall. And the assistant principal was over there one night in the classroom, and she called me and said, "Can you come over here? Something's going on." And the other guy was over there, and he helped her out, and he said it sounded like somebody beating on a pipe with a big wrench for a minute, and then it sounded like 100-mile-an-hour wind. And I thought, man, that's worse than anything I ever heard over there.
Gracious.
So maybe it was just kind of, it spiked every now and then. I don't know.
Yeah. Has Mary gone out on any investigations with you guys yet?
Not yet. We're actually just getting started.
Okay.
We've been trying to recruit some members, and we've got another guy that lives a few miles away. He's going to be pretty much part-time because of his schedule, but I think he'll be good too.
Yeah. One of the most important things you guys need to line up is a tech guy for sure.
Yeah, he's got a good background in computers, and he took all kinds of training in that in the military.
Yeah.
And then he was he's done investigation work too.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I'm from I kind of hate this term, but I'm kind of from the old school. I don't, back when we used to do investigations and things, that was before any of the electronic stuff and all that. And we just kind of depended on our senses and, a little bit of stuff like thermometers and water and baby powder and stuff like that. So that was back before, all this electronic stuff. So I know it's very important today to have a good tech guy on hand to be able to help you out with some of that stuff.
Yeah, getting everything hooked up and make sure it's running. One of these new cameras I've got, I had it working last year at this time, and since I didn't have any investigations going on, I kind of forgot how to work it, and now I'm having to figure it out again. So
We'll probably be in luck when the app students come back.
Yeah.
But it's going to be hard to find a tech person that's also Christian, because I know Chris really wants to keep that, at the center of everything.
Yeah, I know. It's I've got some emails from people that said they were interested in joining the group, and I said, well, due to the nature of what we're going up against, we want everybody to have a strong Christian faith. And I said, I hope you're still interested, and I haven't heard back yet. So it's been a week or so.
Poof.
The guy from Ashe County.
Uh-huh.
He was interested, and I said, well, this is a Christian group, and I don't know if that kind of turned him off or not.
Well, if it did, you don't need him anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel God will put the right people, at the right time.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking we'll probably add just one or two at a time, and I think we've got a good number to start with right now.
Yeah. I mean, we have that pending, that case, when he decides that he's not going to just ignore the shadows and being grabbed and the suicide that happened. He's got a ton of stuff going on, and being former military, he's got the, that complex where I can't ask for help, but he's going to need it.
Absolutely. And I've always, I just always, to me, it's always been like investigations of this type is, and I've told this to Mary before, is much like a calling, like the ministry. That's exactly to me what it's like. I graduated from the seminary. My wife tells me that she thinks I've been running from God most of my life because she thought I should have been a preacher, but I still don't feel like that's what God intended for me to do. And hopefully I'm making a difference what I'm doing now. And I pray all the time asking for, God's guidance as to what I'm doing and so on. And I really envy people like you and Miss Mary that go out and help these people one-on-one and face-to-face, because I think that's one of the noblest things a human being can do. But I really appreciate it. And in case nobody's told you this lately, thank you for what you guys are doing, because it needs to be done.
Thank you, Terry.
Sure, absolutely. So if I understand correctly, you have not actually done any investigations yet, but you've got one that you're working on, right?
Right. As soon as this guy decides, and I'm sure he will, because he can't fight it forever. He's got enough stuff going on. He's a corrections officer too, so he's got all that muck.
Yeah, and like you said, the former military guy, I can handle this. I can do this. I did this and I did that, and this is something of a totally different nature. Our fight is not against flesh and blood.
That's right.
So, and
I think that's why this on the road stuff is going to be good with the Brown Mountain Lights and Hill's Bar, and I just think it's going to be good experience for everyone to work together.
Oh, absolutely.
Before handling something demonic, I don't think I would bring the girls on it. I think I would go with Chris.
Yeah.
Something blatantly demonic, I think it's pretty dumb to bring a couple of girls that are not experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a woman that I used to work with. She was actually a co-host of mine on Voices Carry for a while. They have a film that was taken at Hales Bar Dam. And it is one of the most amazing pieces. I do not understand why it's not out there for everybody to see, because it's one of the most amazing pieces of film I've ever seen in the paranormal. And they were coming out of one of the tunnels down underneath there, and they were filming like this concrete walkway going up, and there were wet footprints appearing on this walkway going up. And I mean, that still just blows my mind every time I see it. But you'd think that would be a very famous piece of paranormal footage. But I think that they're kind of waiting for the right situation or whatever. But I do know that there is some very interesting stuff going on there at Hales Bar Dam. So, and I'm really looking forward to that show. And we were talking about you going to Brown Mountain. I've not been there. I've heard about it. I've seen, stuff on television about Brown Mountain, but I know down in Texas, in Marfa, Texas, where they have the Marfa lights, it gets weird down there at times, because you have one group of people over here that come and camp out for a week at a time, and they think that these lights are UFOs or, something from outer space. So they all sit there with their cameras and their things to film UFOs and things like this. And then over here on this side, you have people that claim it's like demonic lights, and they're all there with their cameras and their film. They're trying to get demons. And then you have this group over here that thinks it's something else. And it gets to be a madhouse. I mean, there was a man, and these people are diehard believers. There was actually a man had a little booth set up selling alien urine.
Oh my gosh.
Oh Lord.
So you're liable to run into some very interesting people there at Brown Mountain if it's anything like Marfa. So that ought to be interesting. I'm looking forward to those shows. I really am. And I think it's just
live. Who knows what can happen?
Oh, absolutely. That's the fun part. I mean,
it might be a little comical too.
Yeah, absolutely. Live radio or television is I've been involved in both, and those things that anything can happen and usually does. But for anybody that don't know, and I know that Chris is up there in that area too, tell us about Brown Mountain. Like I said, I know about it, but other people may not. So what's going on at Brown Mountain? Chris is going with you to Brown Mountain, right?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, great. So tell us about that.
Chris, do you want to do it?
Yeah, I can. The history of it is there's a war between the Cherokee and Catawba Indians on Brown Mountain,
Mm-hmm.
and they had a lot killed. And the legend is the lights are like the spirits of Indian maidens looking for the warriors.
Mm-hmm.
That's about all the history I know about it. But as far as theories about what they are, I've heard swamp gas. I've heard some kind of natural plasma. But the question I have about it, why does it stay in one area? Why is it not widespread over all these mountains? And the mountains here are about like the mountains in the Northeast, and I've never heard of it up there. And it's just so concentrated in one spot.
Yeah, they had all kinds of theories like headlights and trains, but the problem with that is there's no roads and no houses.
Yeah, that's what I've heard on some of the television shows, that people tried to just dismiss it that way. And that's another thing. It's kind of a burr under my saddle, as Grandpa used to say, about that it almost seems to me like in a lot of the paranormal cases and stuff, people are too quick to debunk it and say, oh, well, that's not nothing. That's, this over here. And I was always kind of a fan of that show Taps on television. And Ghost Adventures, wasn't Ghost Adventures. It was Taps. I don't know.
And Ghost Hunters.
Yeah. And, but, they, those two guys were upstairs, and they heard like something fall over downstairs. So they ran downstairs real quick, and sure enough, there's a vase sitting on this table right in the middle of the room. And they're going around, well, the doors were locked. And then one of the guys said, well, somebody could have broke through in that back door, came in here, knocked the vase over, and then ran outside before we got down here. And I'm going, that's reaching a little bit far, and something like that. But it seems like, like the headlights and train lights and things on Brown Mountain and stuff, that just seems like that's kind of just a way to say, oh, it's nothing, don't worry about it, just like if you don't know about it, it's not going to hurt you type thing, and go on, but.
Right. And it's ridiculous because there's no roads or houses.
Yeah.
It's just woods.
Yeah. But, I don't know what it is. I think it would be very, very, very interesting. I hope that the night we do the show there, I hope y'all get to see them. Are they pretty regular? Do they come, regularly, or is it kind of once a year or whatever?
I think it's all the time. That's what I've heard. I know Chris's uncle saw them.
I've heard it's pretty much every night, especially in summer. Yeah.
That's cool. So
my uncle, he's a real big skeptic about paranormal stuff. He said, I've never seen a ghost and I don't believe in them, but he went up and saw the Brown Mountain lights.
What was his thoughts about that?
I don't know. I didn't really ask him, but it's probably that it was some kind of natural phenomenon.
Yeah, that tends, everything gets put under that category, either a natural phenomenon or Indian burial ground or something.
I don't think it's any kind of car lights or train lights, because in videos you can see the lights come up over the horizon, and they're obviously free floating, and it's moving around and going different directions. And
yeah, must be some wild drivers if they're headlights, huh?
Yeah.
Or bears on crack. I don't know.
I like that. Bears on crack.
They look like some kind of orbs in the distance. It's not like a headlight beam. It's just like a ball of light.
Yeah, and they're all over the place. It's random. It's not the same pattern.
Wow. I'm sorry, I got sidetracked a moment. I'm getting messages things. When you guys go to Brown Mountain, do you expect to stay there like 3 or 4 hours, or is there a place where you can like be there overnight, or how does that work?
we'll probably just stay like 3 or 4 hours. It's a little over an hour for us to get there. And it depends on where you go. They're visible from more than one place. Like Chris was getting the map out. And there's a place called Table Rock that you're supposed to be able to see them from there, too.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay. Well, I, for one, am really looking forward to that show that night. I think it's going to be one of the more spectacular ones that we've done. Over the years, we've done a couple of live shows on Voices Carry. We did one year from Dragon Con in Atlanta. And one of the problems we had there, which I don't expect to have this time, was that there was so much noise in the background that it was really hard to hear because, thousands of people in a room and you're trying to do a live radio show. But this shouldn't have that problem at all, I wouldn't think. So,
well, we're going to do a dry run before just to make sure we get Wi-Fi and we can set up a Wi-Fi hotspot and, just know where we're going.
Yeah.
You don't want us lost on the night of the show.
Oh, absolutely. And this, the Voices Carry on the Road was completely Mary's idea. And I am so happy and thrilled that she came up with that because, as you know, I don't get around very well or travel very much. So it's not something I would have thought of. And I really appreciate Mary coming up with this great idea because it's, like I said, it's something we've done only once or twice. And I think this one has a chance of really being something cool. So I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to Connecticut, too. Maybe I can do live with Nick, because I'll be there most of the month of September.
Oh, that would be cool. Nick is a great guy. I've had... Nick just left a message in the chat room. It says, the Brown Mountain Light phenomenon sounds very similar to the Marfa Lights phenomenon. The first time I went to see the Marfa Lights, I did not see anything. However, a few years later, I went again and was not disappointed. I've been to the Marfa Lights on one occasion. I told Nick in the chat room, and they put on quite a show for us that night. So I'm hoping that it'll be the same thing for y'all. And, Nick gave us the great honor here at Voices Carry of being one of the few times that he's done an interview. If you get a chance, go back and find the show we did with Nick. I need to dig that out and let people see it because it was a great show with Nick. And I'm still very honored that he chose us to do a show with and it took me a while to talk him into it, but he's one of the few people, or we're one of the few shows that he's agreed to do an interview with. So that ought to be pretty cool. And, there was I don't know what it is about Connecticut, but it just seems like there is so much paranormal stuff going on up in that area. And
very much.
And you being from there, Mary, it's kind of a deal of, you probably know a lot of the hot spots and things. So I'm expecting a pretty interesting trip for you there as well. But Nick posted the show he did. So thank you, Nick. I appreciate it.
And Nick's the reason I'm here, too. You can blame him for that.
Yeah, Nick is the one that told me you really need to get Mary to be your co-host. Nick dug out the show for us, and he said, there's your show. So, and then when I told Nick, thank you, I hollered at him like he could hear me. Thanks, Nick, But, and then you have the Warrens coming out of Connecticut. John Zaffis, Orlando Ferrante, Joe Frankie, all those big guys that, were so heavily involved in the paranormal. They all seem to come from that area. So I think that's interesting. I guess it's just that there was, it's kind of an older part of the country or something, maybe, why it's so active. But
probably. I know there's a Puritan kind of righteous spirit going on, just like Salem.
Yes.
It's the same kind of thing, don't do this and don't do that and everything's restricted. But I think the older stuff, I'm not too sure why it's so haunted, but I can tell you it is. Yeah.
I know that when I had my first paranormal experience when I was like in my early teens, the only information I could find at the library was a book by Ed and Lorraine Warren, and they were from the Connecticut area, or from Connecticut actually, and I know that's what got me kind of started. What I've done for most of my life, is doing with this and dealing with that part of everything. But there's certain parts of the country. There's a town called Jefferson, Texas, down there, and it's supposed to be one of the most haunted towns in the country. Like every house in the town is got some kind of paranormal stuff going on, and it's interesting places. And it does indeed seem like there's just little, like a little nest of things here and there. Have you noticed that?
You talking to Chris or me?
Anybody that's willing to listen.
Yes, on my part.
Okay, it does seem like there's a little nest of paranormal activity. I don't know what if it's something like biological or geographical or what, but there's something going on with that. But
New Orleans is pretty active too.
Where?
New Orleans.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I went there and nearly, the voices and the cemeteries and the whole voodoo thing. It was like an experience for me.
Yeah. I know my daughter went down there to New Orleans, and I had the worst feeling about her going down there and stuff. And I really talked to her beforehand and everything. And New Orleans is just, we went through New Orleans when we were moving out here, and it's just like you get such a bad feeling in that place. It just, and New Orleans is like, I didn't realize until I was reading up on it, but New Orleans is like one of the oldest cities in the country. It's been there, God, forever, because it's at the mouth of the Mississippi and stuff like that. But very interesting. We're just leaving Chris out in the cold, and I sure didn't intend to do that.
I was thinking about St. Augustine the first time I went there. In the first few minutes after I walked outside, it's like you could cut it with a knife. It's like I felt like it was just evil all around over the whole town, the whole area. And I've been back a couple of times, and I didn't feel that way.
Yeah. Well, I have some friends that live down there named Larry and Denise Altman. They run an antique store down there, and and boy, I tell you, Larry can tell you some stories about St. Augustine, and but it's that's a lot of people may not realize that that's the oldest city in the country. I think it was incorporated like 1638 or something. But it's like one of the oldest cities it is the oldest city in America. So, okay, we're coming up on break time real quick. Do we have anything else that we want to get in before the break? Mary?
Oh, you want me to answer that? I thought I would give Chris something.
I was just going to say, did we need to get anything done here before the break?
I don't think so, unless Chris has something else,
in
the second part, we're going to try to expand on some of the stuff that's going around here, like the large coven of witches that we have. And Chris is going to talk about Asheville, too, how it's become like this new age capital.
Yeah,
I know he has a lot to say about that. So.
Okay, I was reading about that. That's great. So why don't we go ahead at this moment then, if Stan is ready, we'll go ahead and do our break. We're having a little bit of a long break tonight, right around almost 15 minutes long. I've got to put a load of clothes in the dryer, and everybody else can get up and get something to drink, walk around, do whatever you want to do. And we're going to take our halfway break here, and we are visiting with Chris Milner of Nightwatch Paranormal Deliverance. Is he based out of? Are you based out of Booneville or Boone? Boone, North Carolina. Okay, so we'll be back with Chris Milner in just a few minutes with Miss Mary, and we'll finish out this episode of Voices Carry. So stay tuned. This is Terry Todd. You're listening to Voices Carry Radio Show on the Voices Carry Radio Network. We'll be back in just a moment. Y'all join us. Enjoy the music. It's special music tonight, y'all.
Lonely shadows following me. Lonely ghosts come a-calling. Lonely voices talking to me. Now I'm gone, now I'm gone, now I'm gone. And my mother told me, son, let it be. Sold my soul to the calling. Sold my soul to a sweet melody. Now I'm gone, now I'm gone, now I'm gone. Don't give me that fire. Don't give me that fire. Don't give me that fire. A thousand faces staring
Tier 2 in progress. Armed robbery report on 6th Street. All units, please respond. Shots fired.
Take a look around me, taking pages from a magazine. Been looking for the answers ever since we were 17. You know the truth can be a weapon to fight this world of ill intentions. New answer to the same question. How many times will you learn the same lesson? I think they got it all wrong. We just gotta hold on and on and on and on. 'Cause we're gonna be legends, gonna get their attention. What we're doing here ain't just scary, it's about to be legendary. Yeah, we're gonna be legends, gonna teach them all a lesson. Got this feeling in our souls we carry, that it's about to be legendary. This is what we came for, and we couldn't want it anymore. Could never turn back now, got to leave it all on the floor. Been dreaming of the payoff, through the struggles and the trade-offs. Fighting tooth and nail on the way up. Tell them the truth, but they think it's just made up. And I think they got it all wrong, but we just gotta hold on and on and on and on. 'Cause we're gonna be legends, gonna get their attention. What we're doing here ain't just scary, it's about to be legendary. Yeah, we're gonna be legends, gonna teach them all a lesson. Got this feeling in our souls we carry, it's about to be legendary. Eventually they're gonna know who's right. To make a stand you got to win the fight. Can't stand the heat and just the afterlife, but you might never make it out alive. You gotta live without a compromise. Let everybody hear your battle cry. Yeah, we're gonna be legends, gonna get their attention. Got this feeling in our souls we carry, it's about to be legendary. Hey! Oh, oh. Here we go, here we go. It's about time that we set it off. Here we go, here we go. Red lights, I could never stop. A dreamer with the fever to be great
Good evening and welcome back to Voices Carry on the Voices Carry Radio Network. This is Terry Todd. I'd like to say a great big thank you to our producer and friend, Mr. Stan Fikes. We could not do what we do every week here on Voices Carry without Stan. And people who are kind of course, Stan has his own show and everything like that. But for this show, he's kind of in the background and people tend to, really forget that he's there and stuff. So we just like to say a great big thank you to Mr. Stan Fikes, our producer, and
Yes.
all the good work he does for us here on Voices Carry. So thank you, Stan. We appreciate it. We've had an interesting little, as Mary always says, it would be cool if we could let you hear what happens during the breaks, because that was a pretty interesting little break we were talking about. But, okay. Now, Mary mentioned this just before the break. I have seen television shows. I've seen YouTube stories about this and everything else. But they're basically telling normal people to stay the heck out of Asheville, North Carolina. Does anybody want to, do you guys want to jump in together and tell us why that is? Why should people stay out of Asheville, North Carolina?
Chris?
Well, I've lived here in these mountains all my life, and I'm from a town called Waynesville, about 30 minutes on I-40 west of Asheville. And we used to go to Asheville about every Sunday, go through town and go shopping. And Asheville seemed like a nice place back when I was growing up in the 80s. But in about 93 and really after 93, they really started changing because other people started moving into this area, and especially Asheville itself seemed to attract more New Age people, and it started with the New Age and other alternative lifestyles. Then it went from that into Wiccans, a lot of those moving in. And I don't know what else there now. I mean, it's just some people drive through town just to see what's going on. I've heard a lot that it's been advertised on billboards out west to come to Asheville. It's the New Age capital of America, or it's the Wiccan capital of the East, or what it used to be is completely opposite of what it is now. And a lot of that is, I don't know if it's creeping up into these other towns from Asheville, or if it's just society as a whole is starting to go to that kind of stuff, because even here in Boone, we've got New Age bookstores, we've got psychics for palm readings, and I keep hearing about a witch coven around here somewhere. I think it's probably scattered out instead of in one place, but I'd like to find out more about that.
Mm-hmm. What?
I think society as a whole is just embracing that stuff. Especially what's disturbing to me is you go in the library or a bookstore and all the kids' books are about vampires and zombies and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, almost all of the books are.
Mm-hmm.
And all these movies and shows that got so big about vampires and now zombies. That's normal to a child now. And we had a handful of books like that when I was growing up, but that was about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the video games.
It seemed like they try to write about an issue of childhood or something, but they always turn it into a monster story or something. Or
yeah,
they don't have much alternative.
Do you have any thoughts or ideas about why these people settled in Asheville?
I think just one thing led to another. I don't know why people came from all those groups. I know in 93, a lot of gay people were starting to move in. And I think they advertised that across the country, and I really don't know. Maybe it was a coincidence when it started going more New Age. But then I think that seemed to lead pretty quickly to the Wiccans moving in, and we've got several. They call them Unity Center churches that have popped up about 15 years ago, and they pretty much. I visited one time, and it was it was kind of funny because they believe in everything. They even had a statue of E.T.
Oh Lord!
in the church.
Oh my God! Oh my God!
But I mean, I guess nowadays you expect some of that, a little bit of everywhere. But for one town to be so alternative,
especially in the middle of Asheville, North Carolina. I mean, that's not someplace you would expect it.
It's a whole different world in the middle of a bunch of farmland and mountains and old little towns and
The Bible Belt.
Yeah.
It doesn't reach there. I mean, Chris, I don't know how you feel about this, but I know there's a big Cherokee influence. And a lot of the New Agers kind of like gravitate to that. You know, I know they do sweat lodges and stuff like that. And these people flock to this stuff.
It seems to be similar to the New Age. I used to have a friend that was, she was half Cherokee, and she claimed to be a shaman. And she'd tell me wild stories about, she went out in the backyard and there was a reptilian. They come out of a portal in her backyard, and she had to try to get it back across and gone. So,
Lord have mercy. The first time I heard about anything weird going on in Asheville was I used to listen to a pastor named Charles Lawson. Do you know about him? Or he's like one of the big pastors there in Asheville, and he did like about a month's worth of services on what was going on there in Asheville about the witches' covens and all the stuff like that going on. And that was where I first heard about it. And then I started, researching it a little bit, and it was just, they said that some of the people that live in Asheville are like afraid to get out and about town just because of some of the stuff that's going on there.
They probably are. Asheville in the last few years, just going by the way they've made everything look, all the shops and buildings and everything, it looks more like New York City now instead of a big town, small city. But now they're getting to be known as one of the beer cities in America.
Beer?
Yeah, there's a little
Micro.
A little brewery on every corner now in downtown Asheville, and some of the other towns are getting like that too.
Well, maybe the witches will all get drunk and leave.
I don't know. Spirits and spirits don't mix.
Spirits and spirits don't mix.
Yeah. That was one of my famous lines through my lifetime. Spirits and spirits don't mix.
Oh, wow. It's always been weird to me how a town like you said, like Asheville, just all of a sudden that kind of stuff will start going on there and everything. And I know San Antonio. I'm from Texas, by the way. So in San Antonio, it got that way at one point. San Antonio and Austin just attracted those kinds of odd people, and then before you know it, it's like it kind of switched after about a decade or so. It kind of switched, and they all moved on somewhere else. I guess they went to Asheville, but it seems like they come in and spend some time, and after amount of time, they just leave. I don't know what the deal is, but hopefully they'll leave Asheville fairly soon. Because from what I understand, that was a great little town before.
Yeah,
artsy town too. Used to be a really good place to visit.
Mm-hmm. That's sad, but
No, it is. And
it is
isn't
what.
Billy Graham's, doesn't he have a house or something there that Franklin Graham is at now, or there's a center or something?
Oh yeah, the Cove.
The
That's his.
Cove.
They have retreats and classes over there.
Isn't that close to Asheville?
Yeah, it's I think it's just outside the city limits.
Oh, so isn't that kind of strange?
Yeah, and then well, let's see, that's the Cove, and then they've got I think it's through the state, but it's the Baptist Convention Center up further up the mountain there. Then Billy Graham's house is on a mountain in Monterey that's close to Asheville.
So that's an interesting three-ring circus going on there.
I know there's a pastor called Ralph Sexton Jr. in Asheville, and he's got a good sized church, and he used to have. Well, sometimes he does still have tent revivals, but he spoke out against some of these people moving in back about '93, and now it's just taken over. Well, going back to some of this stuff about what I was talking about in the first half.
Yes.
Really, the reason I'm so passionate about wanting to get more of a message of Jesus out there and give people an alternative to like 95% human spirits, that kind of a message.
Yes.
It's not, I don't have all these, I mean, it gets on my nerves watching the ghost shows because it's so much of that on there. And plus at the beginning of the shows, it'll say, we're in search of the truth. And most of them will say that, and maybe they are, but they're not taking much of a scientific approach because science usually builds upon prior knowledge. And it's even not just on the shows, it's on, I've watched YouTube videos of just regular groups and they do the same thing. They're not building on what they've learned. It's like they're starting from scratch on every case and just, and I've watched, they'll find a spirit that comes across the ghost box and it'll say, I'm Frank. And then it'll start saying, there's another spirit here that's abusing me. And then a few minutes later, it'll start saying, I'm the devil, and start talking about hell and stuff like that. And some of those teams, it's everywhere they go. It's every single time it goes that way. And they still think it's a human spirit, plus a demon that comes in later. But to me, it's just the same one. And it's telling them who they are, who it is. But even a few years ago, I went from being excited about watching these shows and I was sad about it because I felt for these people, for the people who were living with things going on in their house, and really for the investigators because I know they're sincere and they want to help people. But to me, it's like the blind leading the blind. I know that's might be a harsh statement, but and it's even the Bible says Jesus, it might be in a different place than Jesus wept, but he was sad in his own spirit because the people were like a sheep without a shepherd. And to me, that's what I kept thinking. I thought I have compassion for these people. I don't know how to help. because I didn't have like-minded people around me in another group. I mean, they believed in Jesus, but it was still all about human spirits and everything.
Yeah.
Well,
Chris, I would like to interject here if I could.
Okay.
On this show, if you're speaking the word of God, there is no harsh statements.
Okay.
I have had people that turned on me like you would not believe, simply because I insist upon believing the word of God. And I mean, you would not believe some of the hateful messages, the most horrible things you can imagine. And it is simply because I believe in the true word of God. And if God says something is wrong, it's wrong. It doesn't matter what century it is or who thinks it's okay to do these things today. If God said it was wrong, 2,000-3,000 years ago, it is still wrong today.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can say anything harsh as long as you're speaking the word of God. So I don't want you to feel, and I agree with everything you are saying. I think that a lot of this stuff on television is like, that's what's wrong with the paranormal today, is that they have taken out all the stuff that needs to be there in order to accomplish anything.
The way it's going on TV is, my way of thinking is they want to keep the mystery alive. They don't want to establish anything concrete.
Because then they don't have a show. They
don't have a show. Anymore. They're out of business.
Yeah.
And it's I've even heard them say nothing can ever be known for sure in the paranormal. Well, if they're looking for the truth and then they say that's contradictory to me.
Mm-hmm.
If they think there is a truth and then they say nothing can be known for sure, they're fighting themselves.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Something else that bothers me about the TV shows, there's so much, I would say, Wiccan practices being incorporated into investigating.
Mm-hmm.
Because they use crystals, they use these different things, and a lot of it is, I know they're encouraging people to be psychic on some of them, and it just seems like some of those, to me, that's witchcraft. It's when you put your faith in an object to protect you. To me, that's what that is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not. I don't believe that the people believe anything is wrong with it. The people who do that, but it's just something that's kind of. It's not just in paranormal. I think it's being snuck into society. It's use this and use that, and it's becoming more mainstream and not just
absolutely
in one category.
And see, my wife just left a message in the chat room, and she said, we live in a secular world where it's all about somebody's perception and not about the truth. And that is absolutely the truth. We live in a world where there is no absolute truth. Well, there is, but the world doesn't see it that way, that there is no absolute truth anymore.
I was telling Mary last night, I believe the end of the world, I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's like the rapture and the tribulation.
Mm-hmm.
God said if the time hadn't been shortened, nobody would survive those 7 years.
Yeah.
But I believe the reason for that at that time is not because the world is so wicked, because look at the Dark Ages. They slaughtered people and took a bath in their blood and stuff like that, and they held people down in society and while they got rich, and it's unbelief. I think all this apathy and unbelief, especially, it's really taken hold in this country. And in the Bible, it says Jesus couldn't do many miracles there because of their unbelief.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's, I know he says it's going to be like the times of Noah, how wicked it was. But I think in addition to that, it's the unbelief that's really bringing that about from God.
I agree totally. And I posted a thing in Facebook last night. It was a quote by William Branham, and it just blew my mind when I read it. He said, "How can a man claim to believe in God and not believe everything he said?"
Yeah.
And we are running into I know this is the latter days because we are running into that. We are running into a whole crew of people who are proclaiming themselves as Christian, yet they're not willing to believe what God said. And so, and I'm talking churches and everything like that. And that really bothers me. That really bothers me. But there's nothing you can do about it other than pray. And
I agree.
I think one reason I just can't get into human spirits trapped on earth is just the love of God.
Mm-hmm.
I used to read Psalm 139 and kind of be afraid of it because it says God knows this, that, every little thing about you. Mm-hmm. He knows us better than we know ourselves. And I thought, God's going to get me for sure. Then I heard a message on it, and it was all about the love of God and like God is crazy about us. We're His children. And there's a verse in here. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you're there. If I make my bed in the depths, you're there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's not just in our life here, it's after death. We go down to the grave. He says, I will receive you unto myself. He's not going to let us wander the earth lost or anything. We're in the palm of His hand. And I know the popular belief is people stay on earth because they're afraid of going to God and the judgment or whatever. But there's no escaping God. He's everywhere.
That's right.
And over in Romans, it says, I'm persuaded. Now, this is really an interesting verse if you think of it as a paranormal, in terms of the paranormal.
Mm-hmm.
For I'm persuaded that neither death nor life and all these things shall be able to separate us from the love of God. Okay, death, obviously, but I've hear a lot about after death. The people are afraid to go to God because of the way they lived their life. So this here, if you have your faith in Jesus Christ, it says death nor life can separate you from Him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The only thing that makes sense to me is that when you die, you're immediately with God, and then you go to one place or the other. As far as spirits go, I know there are angels and demons,
mm-hmm.
and that's really all that I've ever believed in. As we were talking about keeping an open mind a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of started out that way when I started with the other group. I thought, well, let's just see what these things are if we can. But even like a year ago, I was trying to get a group started, and I really wanted it to be a Christian group, but I thought, well, that's just not how people in the paranormal believe. I mean, they might be Christians, but most of the time they're going to believe in human spirits. So I thought, I got the idea, if I can get a few people, I've got all this new equipment, let's just kind of take a step back and do our investigations and go through the evidence and go through 1, 2, 3, 4 cases and see what the evidence points to. See what it proves out to be. You just kind of let it prove itself. Mm-hmm. And we'll say that's what a ghost is, or that's what some of them are, or whatever. And either it's going to prove me right or prove me wrong. But it turns out that never got started because it was kind of a way of trying to come in the back door with people and to prove a point. But I think the reason this is getting started now is because we're going to the front door and people can accept it or not. But it's more of a direct way of, I think it's better just to say we're a Christian group. This is what we believe. We want to help. It's up to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What our plan is to go, if we find somebody that wants our help, is to go in and just do a house cleansing or a blessing, or we might do, I think it depends on case by case. We'll do an investigation, but it'll be more of we'll concentrate more on trying to get rid of what we think is negative might be there. Mm-hmm. It's kind of a play on words on our group name, Paranormal Deliverance. To me, I think we're trying to deliver people from the paranormal. Mm-hmm. Because it's bothering them and they want it gone, and we just want help.
That makes sense. I've not heard that before. Mary, I've got to step aside for just a moment. Would you mind taking over and running things for a few minutes?
Sure.
Okay.
Chris is doing a good job running it himself anyway.
All right.
So go ahead, Chris. I'm sure you have more to talk about.
This part of my background, let me go back and I just don't want to come across as too negative. I don't believe in this. I don't believe in that. I don't like this. Back when I was a teenager, I felt called to preach, and I went to a little 2-year Bible college. I was 19 when I graduated, and just really too young and inexperienced, and I got discouraged and just went into the normal workforce. But I think maybe that's where God had me for several years, just to be a friend to people and slowly share what I believe with them and try to live that out kind of in front of them, and be a friend to them when they're going through hard times. But that kind of, I thought maybe that was my real ministry about 10 years ago, maybe get into I was already kind of into the paranormal, but kind of used that to have a positive impact somehow or other. I just didn't know how, and it probably wasn't the right time. I think it's easier now because of, I don't know, maybe some of the newness of the. I don't know if it has anything to do with it or not. People are they know more about it, and they're more used to, maybe it's a little more mainstream. There's just more people that are joining groups and forming groups, and now there's some that are daring to be different, and they don't care if they get ridiculed or what. They just want to help people, and that's the way I am. I have it don't matter if I disagree with what they believe or not. I just have a natural love for people. My grandmother raised me that way, to think of other people before myself, and after I started a relationship with Jesus Christ back in 1985, he has took that seed that was planted and really grown that, and that's what we want for everybody to have. Is things are going to go wrong. The bottom's going to fall out sometime with everybody, and it helps so much. I've been in places in my life where the only thing I had in the world was God. Mm-hmm. But I still felt like I had a lot because I had God, because he is everything.
Absolutely. My grandfather used to say, when you're flat on your back, the only place you can look is up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Or when you hit rock bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Jesus is the rock at the bottom.
Absolutely.
Well, when Jesus walked the earth, he really didn't have anything. He didn't have, sometimes he didn't have a coin in his pocket. But sometimes when you go through rough stuff, you wonder, why does good things happen to, bad things happen to good people? It's just, if you think about it, you kind of feel more like Jesus did, a little bit more like he did when he was here. I mean, he went through, he didn't, he was kind of lived a poor lifestyle as far as money goes, and then how he was tortured and died, that was the worst you could ever humiliate anybody. Mm-hmm. That's just kind of how I see it as far as things in my own life. But
yeah, well, the scriptures tell us that the rain falls on the just and the unjust. So it's really, God is like, it's very odd because we all strive to have like a personal relationship with him, but because God is God, that's a very difficult thing to do. We cannot even begin to understand God on much of any level. That's why he sent Jesus Christ here to live as a man, so that we could relate to God as a man. And you know, we suffered the same, not anywhere near what he did, but we suffered the same things that Jesus did in a way, because he was a man. We know what it's like to suffer loss and pain and, you know, difficulties like that, because he suffered those same things. And it's much easier to have a personal relationship with Christ than it is with God, just because Jesus Christ was a man, and we can more relate to him. You know, it's like you mentioned earlier, Jesus wept. You know, when oh gosh, I just drew a blank. What's
Lazarus.
his name? Lazarus. When Lazarus died, yeah. You know. So I mean, he loved Lazarus like a brother, and when Lazarus died, he hurt because of it. Even though he knew he was coming back, you know, he still felt that pain, and that's something that we go through. Over the last year, I've lost 2 of my brothers have died over the last year, and so I went through all of that, and it kind of helped to know that, at least through Jesus, I was not alone, that I had felt, some of the same things that he had felt while he was here. And because we all crave that closeness with the Lord. That's my strength is my closeness with the Lord. And I will often find myself sitting in a room talking to him, just like he was sitting here in the room with me. And that gives me great comfort. I know a lot of people think, oh, that's a crazy thing to do, but that gives me a lot of comfort because it's like having a daily conversation with the Lord, But I want to tell you something. I do the same. I want to tell you something, Chris, and I don't say this to a lot of my guests. I am really, really glad that you're here tonight because some of the things you have said have made me think a little deeper, made me seek a little harder. And I want to thank you for that. It's very rare that a guest affects me on much of a deep level like this, and you have. So I just wanted to thank you for that. I really appreciate you being here.
Well, thank you. I kind of had a thought. I've heard, I guess, a lot of preachers talk about when we're saved and believe in Jesus, God takes us out of the world and then puts us back into the world as a light for the world. So kind of not agreeing with a lot of things that are going on in the paranormal world. That's kind of like God taking me or whoever out of the world. So then he puts us back into the world to show them the love of God.
Amen.
And we're not going to go to somebody and preach to them what you believe is wrong or you're doing something wrong here. We just want to show them the love of God.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because I think Mary and myself, we've been in some of these places where they are. Not just having things going on in their house. I mean, just having other beliefs or whatever.
No, I've been everywhere with the belief system, from Wiccan to pagan to Native American, but I think God creates us with that hunger. Our spirit man hungers for him. So if you're not set on the right path to begin with, you go down all these paths trying to fill that big empty spot inside. Yeah. And I tell you, I've been everywhere, and the only peace I've ever known is Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
And I think all the suffering that we go through, we can kind of sympathize with people going through stuff, but when you suffer, you can empathize. You can actually feel what they're feeling. And I think that's how we can help others, by going through that stuff and keeping us humble. Because a lot of times when you get saved, preachers make it look like it's going to be unicorns, confetti, balloons, and a big old party being a Christian. But it's not. It's hard work. And at times you just want to lay down and give up. But you know what? Even in the hard times, you have that peace. I know I do.
I agree totally. I know that we are getting close on time here, and I'm going to do something also that I don't do very often. My co-host, Mary, and I want you to jump in here and talk a little bit about this, Mary, has recently, and she didn't tell me to do this or anything. I'm doing it because I believe in it. Mary recently started a blog, and it is some of the most uplifting, magnificent writing that you can find on the internet. Mary, would you please tell people how they can find it and let them know kind of what it's about and what's going on there? Because I think this is something that people ought to know about.
Okay, well, I really started it because the Holy Spirit works with me. I'll read my Bible, and most times I'm confused about things, and I question God because His ways are not our ways. But the Holy Spirit gives me insight. It's not me; it's how it's presented to me. So, I give him the credit and God the glory for it, and he kind of gave me the gift of words. I've always been better writing than speaking, believe it or not, even though I talk a lot. But, it's on www.spiritualfood and the number 4 and the word thought.com. And there should be another one going up tonight. It's only when the Spirit leads me.
Yeah. And if you do, run through that address for one more real quick time.
Sure. It's www.spiritualfood, the number 4, thought.com.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you doing that. Anna and I have been reading it every day, or when a new one comes up, and it's really amazing. Anybody that is a believer needs to be reading this every time it comes up, because it's amazing, and you can tell that it is directly from the heart of God. So it's wonderful.
And I won't put anything out there just to put something out there.
Yeah.
I wait for the Holy Spirit, so it might not be every day, but I'm being led tonight, so I'm going to put something else out there. And
Okay.
it's just getting through that Christian walk, because it's a tough walk.
It is. It is indeed. And I was talking. I met a guy recently who has a YouTube channel on YouTube, and we were talking, getting along great. And he went and looked at some of our shows, listened, and he came back and he said, "Oh, well, I'm not a Christian."
Oh.
And like that was like a turning point. And it's like, I thought, okay, I'm going to go ahead and, be friends with this guy. And we're going to go ahead and, I'm going to lead him gently in that direction and see what happens. And I'm discovering some very interesting people who have like YouTube channels and things. And very, very interesting. If you have a little extra time at some point, go through there. There's a guy named Gabe, the street preacher, that's really interesting. I mean, he tells it like it is, and if you don't like it, it's too bad. But really, really, really interesting stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and see about kind of shutting things down here. Chris, we appreciate you being here more than you know. I hope you'll come back with us again at some point in the future. And we look forward to hearing you on Mary with their Voices Carry on the road shows, because I know that's going to be something really, really good. And we just want to, Mary and I both, and all the people listening, want to say a great big thank you for being here tonight. It's been great.
Thank you.
Oh, sure. And welcome back, Nick. It's so good to see you here. I got an email. Yeah, come. We're glad you're here. Nick's been in Facebook jail for quite a while.
And he does that often.
Often, yeah. And also, we wanted to just let folks know that I got an email on the break, and we're also again tonight. We had our regular listeners from England, Scotland, Ireland, Mexico, Japan, Australia. I saw that Darren was listening in from New Zealand. He didn't drop into the chat room, but he was listening. So. Chris, your show went out all over the world tonight, and hopefully you'll touch some hearts and change some minds, and we'll do some good here. That's our goal, is to help those who need help and to lead them and guide them to the arms of the Lord. So we're really glad that you were here to be a part of that.
That'd be great.
All right. Mary, do you have anything to end up with, partner?
No, I think we kind of covered it all, didn't we?
I think so. Sounds pretty good. I am very proud of this show. I'm very proud of it. So I think we did a good thing tonight. And until next week, we got a couple of special guests coming in next week. So y'all be sure and stay tuned for that. Be looking for the banners the next day or so, and you'll see what we're talking about. But y'all stay tuned and come back again. Join us next week right here. You have been listening to Voices Carry Radio on the Voices Carry Radio Network. We thank you for being here. God bless you all. Good night. Have a great week, and we'll see you again right here next week on Voices Carry.
Loving you isn't the right thing to do. How can I ever change things that I feel? If I could, maybe I'd give you my word. How can I
everything